Hi, everyone. It is February 19th at 6 o'clock p.m. EST. You are watching the Dovecote episode 16 with Jay Dragon. Jay, say hi and introduce yourself.
Hello, hello. My name is Jay Dragon. I am the editorial director at Possum Creek Games. I'm a queer disabled game designer in Philadelphia. You probably know me for my work on Wanderhome or Yuseba's Bed and Breakfast, or you might not know me for my work on other games.
Yeah. Uh, Welcome. I've been, you know, I'm excited to have all my guests on here, but I've been excited in different ways. Let's say to have you on, just because I think that we can have some fun conversations.
Wendy told me you were so nervous about asking me if I would come on this, and I've been sitting over here being like, "Oh golly gee, I wonder if Eclipse will ever ask me to come on to the Dovecote." Wow, wow, wow.
It's
So I'm
really
very
funny.
excited. I generally love doing these sorts of things, and especially I think a girl time I think is something I enjoy a lot more than a lot of tabletop RPG talk shows that I could end up on.
Yeah, yeah. The Dovecote is really about girl time, I think.
Yeah, this is to me my version of like a sleepover where we're braiding each other's hair.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of girl time, we gotta
Mhm.
bring. If you saw any birds previously, you didn't, and don't. That's I'm forgetting words, but that's treason. If you say that you've seen birds, you haven't.
Bird free. Bird free since
Yeah.
'93. I don't know why we've forbidden bird sighting, but
Now there are
I'm I'm
birds.
I'm all, "Oh, sick!
And
Oh,
Charo is
fuck
here,
yeah!
the interview bird. Uh,
Oh, fuck yeah! Oh, fuck! That rule, that's great, I love that.
yeah. That's the gimmick, is that I send birds
Incredible,
out.
I'm so glad. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I love when a designated interview bird shows up.
Yeah, when I do the final episode of this, it's just gonna be like a swarm of different birds that were all here the whole time. There's gonna be like the the bird of orbs, the bird of wands, the bird that
Oh,
like manages the stars in the sky.
yes, the 7 birds who together keep magic across Isha. Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about Seven Part Pact. Tell my
Okay.
audience about Seven Part Pact actually.
So, hi everyone. You might be thinking that I'm here to promote the game that's coming out in a couple months, but no, you're wrong. I'm here to talk about a game that I am publishing tentatively several years from now, maybe never. Because I'm a madwoman who cannot be stopped. I'm like an engine that just keeps going forward no matter what. Um, and I made a game called Seven Part Pact that Eclipse and I had a lovely time playing together somewhat recently. It was several months ago, I think. I don't remember when we played.
I don't think we
It
played.
we didn't no, we played together. No?
Did we?
I thought you were the necromancer.
I am playing Necromancer in Molly's game.
Oh, but I'm not in Molly's game. That's right. My bad.
Yeah.
We've never played together. That's a tragic.
I think
That's tragic.
Jeff also remembers playing Seven Part Pact with me in person, which is like impossible.
Oh,
Because
that's probably 'cause he confused you with, what do you Natalie, who is in chat, I think, maybe.
I think so too.
Um, yes. Hi, Nat. Uh, Jeff Jeff, get it together.
It's really funny.
Uh, but, or at least Jeff is, but Jeff is also a very forgetful, lovely man.
Yeah, Jeff's great.
Yeah, I love Jeff. He's a little forgetful. I think, um but so it's a game about 7 wizards who together govern like, the magic of this fantasy world. It is a an asymmetrical 7 like, the 4 to 7 player game where that's deeply simulationist and built around, uh, casting spells through consulting this enormous rule book and also micromanaging your domain through, the delegation of your time and also like warping reality to some pretty major degrees, and it's very weird and very crunchy without having any math in it. Um and it's my kind of big master project right now that I've been doing. I'm playing with all my friends, and truly, it is a chance to play a game that I am having a great deal of fun making with all the people who I enjoy playing games with.
Hell yeah. Just to give you a sense of so I'm playing this game with Molly, who uh people, I guess eventually people will know about more than they do now.
You'll
But
know
Molly's great. Like
Mhm.
Molly is a like person who knows how to make games playable.
Molly is a very brilliant as a very brilliant RPG mind, I would say. I think Molly is a very she's someone who's very good at thinking about games in a very in a very like thoughtful and detached way, like being able to take a, like and being able to run them very well and play them very well.
Yeah. To give you a sense, I'm playing the Necromancer. This is my domain right now in Seven Part Pact. Um,
Ah, yes.
so like, I don't think I could start explaining this to you. And like, everyone else has their own shit going on.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just
Yeah,
all sorts
the
of
map, there's
stuff.
the Mariner's map. Like that's
Um,
a I love that player did do custom design on making their map look pretty, which I'm very impressed by, and that's like
very
I'm
nice.
delighted by because it's my goal for how it'll look in the end. But for now, this is just a fantastic thing. But yes, it
Yeah.
is this convoluted ass game.
Oh, hey, Molly's in chat. Hi, Molly.
Oh, Molly. I didn't know
um,
Molly was in chat. I just was complimenting her. Um,
Yeah. You said as you started talking about Seven Part Pact that you are here to talk about Seven Part Pact. And I am also
I'm
here to talk about Seven Part Pact.
I'm not, like, here in any official capacity, right? Like,
Right.
this isn't, like, an early access press tour. This is just like a, I am here, and it is inevitable that wherever I go, I will be talking about Seven Part Pack.
It's
It's like
gonna
a
happen.
it's happened to my parents, it's happened to my friends, it has happened to everyone in my life must somehow learn about the wizards that are trapped inside my head.
Yeah.
Uh, so, yeah, it is I am here to talk about Seven Part Pact is more of a warning than it is,
Right.
like a mission statement.
Um, I will say, at the same time, people should get Uzebas nonetheless.
We should try to
Uh,
use Sabas. I think it's gonna be really good. We're currently in the middle of the enormous logistical hurdle of actually shipping, like getting Uzebas to our warehouse, which is like a nightmare. Um, and is like we're running 6 months behind, but we will get it here, and it's gonna be really cool. I've got a copy by me. It's very pretty. It's a chonky book. But if you're gay and you're in RPGs, you probably heard me talk about it enough already, and you're
mhm.
gonna have to hear me talk about it a lot in a few months from now when I do the actual press tour for it. So, you know,
It's
it's a good gun.
it's a rather
It's
pleasant game.
the thing that fucking sucks about making anything is you like make a thing and you love it, and then 3 years later you publish it, and it's so hard to talk about how you love it because it's been so long,
Mhm.
and you're just like, "Who why?" Right? Like, who like, "Why am I doing this?" And the answer is because you do still love it. It's but, like, you have to then turn around and access the part of you that loves it instead of, like how like the active love I feel for Seven Part Pact, which is, like, overflowing because it's the new thing. Like, Yuzeba's is the older thing. Like, older for me, new for the world. Because, even though some people have probably been playing it for years now, it has only it's coming out in a couple months, you know?
Yeah, it's the Adventure Time Astral Plane thing where it's like if birth is the greatest act that we can do, then what else do we have? Just like dissolve into entropy. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Like, it's you do like and it's also, I think, a very particular thing that I've heard Mark Rosewater talk about in regards to Magic the Gathering, where it's like in with Magic the Gathering design, he lives in the future, right? Because all Magic sets are designed 2 years before they're released. So he is always designing Magic cards 2 year like, he's always thinking about Magic cards 2 years after everyone else has, so he's like a time traveler.
Mm.
And so to, like, talk about the new set in an excited way, he has to, like, travel back in time. He has to, like, change his brain to be able to promote it, and I feel similarly about the games I make where it's like, there's such a gulf where it's like, by the time 7 Part Pact is coming out, I'm gonna be so fucking not interested in promoting it because it's gonna be like, "Oh god, that thing?" Like, I talked all about how much I love it, like, 4 years ago, and now it's real, and I don't care. My new game is, Schnumfly's birthday party or whatever. I don't know.
Graspo's Quest.
Graspo's Quest. Yeah, I'm making Graspo's Quest, which is a game it's a legacy mega dungeon that you play using, sticky hands. Like, those so you've got, like, the mega dungeon that's made up of all these building blocks, and you have, like, sticky hands that you slap like using the tech from that these mermaids touch your dick maybe, right? Like, using
Yeah.
that game design, using the Taylor the Brush game design technology, where you've got sticky hands and you slap them onto the mega dungeon to, like, go into rooms and steal things.
What's that like clay? That old like clay D&D game?
I don't know. I know I have encountered a game that is I maybe saw this one on Itch.io, but I encountered a game that was where you each build a monster out of Play-Doh, and
Mm,
then you have them fight each other by smashing them into each other, and the monster with greater, like, structural integrity is the monster that wins the fight.
yes. Okay, I found it. It's Clayorama.
Uh-huh.
There was a play of it on Polygon back in the day, which I think was uh I know it had Pat Gill and Simone Rochefort. I don't know who else, but uh
Mhm.
it's weirdly it's like on Wizard's website. Um
Huh.
yeah. Uh it's um it's really interesting. You
That
determine your character's number of attacks based on how many limbs they have. Uh,
oh. Oh, maybe this
yeah,
is what I was thinking of. That does kinda rule, honestly.
yeah, this is kind of awesome. Um, silly thing, weirdo freak. Okay, that's good. It's a good game. Wizards of the Coast has made one good game. Thank you.
Look, you have to remember, Wizards of the Coast buys many, many games, and
Yeah,
so, you know, they've never made a good game, but they've acquired a number of good games. Actually, that's not true. I do genuinely think Magic the Gathering is a good game, and that was
yeah.
OG made by Wizard WotC, so unfortunately, I do think they've made a game, but
There's a game.
sadly.
Yeah. Um. Well, cool. I think that we basically talked about. Usually, I have a couple of questions that I vaguely go through. So
Mhm,
I'll go on to my usual next one. Um,
mhm.
speaking of games that you like, uh, are there any games that are like out now that you are like playing or passionate about or like have read that really grabbed you?
Huh. Yeah, it's a weird thing because it's a little I all of the games I'm most excited about are ones that my friends are working on right now,
Mm,
and so they're not out yet, and so I can't, like, quite hype them up because it's like, "Oh, man, you're gonna love this thing in, like, 1 to 3 years." This is also part of the living in the future effect, I feel
mhm.
like. The danger of being too immersed is that, like, the games that I'm most thrilled for are the ones that are, like, coming in the future but aren't here yet. I also have kind of I don't know, like, I've kind of fallen out of having, like, I don't know, seeing maybe I think, like, my instinct is, like, has there something has have games fallen off in the past year? And the truth is, no, they have not fallen off. I just have not been playing as many games as I should, and I've not been kind of thinking of them as new things, so my game knowledge kind of feels a little frozen. Um, I got, God,
You have a heart of
I don't
gold.
know, yeah,
Don't let them take it from you.
I wish I had a good I wish I like, I feel like I should be able to be like, "Here's a good game I've been playing." Um, I've been loving a lot of OSR stuff lately, which is maybe also part of it, is that OSR is so not easy to be like, "Ah, here's a new thing," right?
Right.
Like, by its existence, that it does not c condone new things. So it's like I've been loving a lot of blog posts. I've been reading a lot of good blog posts, right? Like I got some Sandro just dropped. Actually, that's a game that I think is really cool. Sandro did a really cool game. Let me remember what the name of it is.
Yeah.
It's I believe um yeah, here we go. Here's Sandra's Itch. Steelheart Zero. I think it looks really cool. Um, Steelhearts here. I can send you
Yes, that'd be fantastic.
the Wikio username. It's an OSR ish OSR adjacent mech game that I think is really interesting. Seems to have really cool
Thou
tactical
hast
stuff.
journeyed
I kind of
far.
I was not super impressed by Lancers by Lancers tactics, and this game I think does a much better job of a lot of that I think is really cool. Um, or like, you know, like kind of is in relation. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's neat. And Sandra has a lot of really fantastic blog posts. They've got one on goblins that they put out literally today, where they're like, "Hey, here's an alternate way of doing goblins in your OSR game," and it has goblins be the imaginary friends of children who uh like suffered and died, and so the goblins
Oh,
are playful but grieving, which I found really compelling and dark and fascinating.
it's
And I don't want to
great.
like dig into it because of, you know, like I don't want to like go deep on child death on this, but it's a very very fascinating blog post, and I've been loving some good blog posts.
Hell yeah. I want to thank Grief for the raid, by the way. Hope you had fun.
Yay!
Um, but yeah, I've also been reading blog posts. I've been out here reading blog posts. Like, they're
It's
good.
time for blog posts. It's time.
It's time. We got to
It's
get
no more games, only blog posts. This game could have been a blog post.
back to the Google Plus era in some ways. Maybe not in other ways, but in some
Truly.
ways.
Truly. I'm very pro. I'm very pro the blog post. I think that like the absence of blog posts in story games is like a tremendous tragedy.
Hmm.
And I think that like the OSR holds the monopoly on it in a way that I think is unnecessary and bad. And I think that it would be good if people wrote more blog posts from more perspectives. Not that I don't love my OSR blog posters, but I want more. I want more.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I agree. Um, what was the? I'm trying to think of ones that I've read recently that really hit me. Um,
were you paying attention to the bloggies?
I was paying some attention to the bloggies.
Okay, there's some real good ones. I really liked the winner actually was this one blog post about called I think like exploring wilderness.
Hmm,
And it's basically just being like, hey, the hex map is not actually a good way to do like that does not accurately model how people move through wilderness, and it'll lead you to spending disproportionate amounts of time on parts of the map that aren't interesting. So let's instead think about mapping through the way people actually map the spaces they exist in. And so it uses theory around urban geography and cartography to where it's like, okay, these are the tools people use to navigate urban spaces, where it's like they use roads and they use landmarks and they use divisions and like that kind of stuff. And you can just cross apply that over to nature and think about like, okay, so what you actually need is to be like, okay, here's a road and here's the landmark and here's the boundary and here's the like the neighborhood and like these kind of like using that to build a map instead of a hex grid. And I found that to be very fascinating.
yeah, that rules. That sounds great. I
Mhm.
think what was it? Whose mechanic is it anyway? Was a really good blog that I feel like
Oh,
was useful. Um,
it's cool. I don't know that one.
yeah, that one is about. I'll see if I can find that one after the
Mhm.
stream. But that one was about like carry weight. Um,
Mm,
and
mhm.
basically like uh the idea that like players if players have to like look over carry weight or else get penalties, they're not going to look over carry weight. But if players uh get
Yes,
benefits from looking at
yes, actually, I
carrying
did
it.
see this blog
Yeah,
post. Yes.
it's very
Yes,
good.
I've been thinking about a lot. Yeah, where basically, like, as you're saying, like, the argument is that if you like, the reason why people don't bother tracking encumbrance and don't bother with, like, torches and ammunition is because they like, they are penalized. It's like a penalty that they are also in charge of enforcing, and no one wants to enforce a penalty.
Mhm.
Whereas like on themselves. Whereas if you make it so that either someone else is enforcing the penalty, or you flip it and they're not enforcing a penalty, but instead granting themselves a bonus under certain circumstances, people are going to pay much more attention to it, right? So it's like, what if instead of a penalty in darkness, there's a bonus when you've got a torch, right? Or like, what if instead of a penalty from being over encumbered, it's the bonus while under encumbered? Or, right, like somehow it's some other player's job. Like, I've been thinking about that a lot with Seven Part Pact
Mhm.
because are you familiar with the Shege principle?
I'm not, no.
Okay, it's a very pretentious name for a Forge era thing, which is basically like a forum conversation between Vincent Baker and Paul Shege, where Shege, and then like they made a Wikipedia article for it for some godforsaken reason. But basically, it's this idea that you do not want to be in a spot where one player is uh,
You have a heart of gold.
deciding the
Don't let them
situation,
take it from you.
deciding how they will navigate the situation, and deciding how that method of navigation creates a resolution, right? So a player does not want to be like, you don't want to be in a spot where it's like, I come upon 3 goblins in the dungeon, and I fire my arrows at them, and my arrows hit and kill all 3 goblins, right? That's
Yeah.
bad. That's pretty not fun. Like, almost always, and in some part Pact, where each wizard is both a GM for their domain and, like, the main person interacting with their domain, right? Like, the necromancer is in charge of death, like, the gates of death and the beings that dwell in death, but also the main person who's gonna be talking to those things is the necromancer, and, like, navigating that is the necromancer, and so how do you circumvent the thing where one person is having to play all 3 parts of that, or, the whose mechanic is it anyway problem of, like, how do you avoid the situation where, like, there are penalties that only that one person is like tracking and keeping an eye on applying for themselves. And the answer, like the a lot of the answers come down to like, like tactically handing off the responsibilities of the domain, or like asking other people to make those decisions, or like making it so consequences that come out of your domain don't actually affect you but affect other people, right? So like death blowing up is not a thing making a problem for you, it's a thing that makes a problem for everyone else.
Right.
Avoid that tension, like it's not actually, it's like that way you're not tracking a thing that penalizes you. You are tracking a thing that fucks over everyone else, which is immediately a more enjoyable thing to track.
Yeah. Um, I had a similar thing where like early vampires in Sapphic World sucked ass because it was like you have to track the amount of blood tokens you have and like you need to keep
Uh,
them up. And then I was like, no, you just get a certain amount of blood tokens every session, and then you can use them to do cool shit. Like
yeah, that's good.
you should just be able to do stuff sometimes, and that's okay.
Mhm, mhm,
Get a little silly
mhm.
with it.
No, absolutely. Get a little silly with it. I think, like, a lot of it also is, like, like figuring out how to pass stuff off, right? Like this is one
Mhm.
of the advantages of a GM-less game over a GM'd game, where like in a game that's GM'd, you kind of have to like there's certain limits to what can get passed off and how before it stops being a GM'd game.
Mhm.
Whereas like when you get GM-less or GM full with it, it's much easier to be like, hey, I know that I'm in charge. Like the classic problem of in D&D where it's like the DM is talking to himself, right? He's got two NPCs and they're talking to each other, and so he ends up talking to himself in front of everyone. I don't know why I gendered the DM here. Uh, she ends up talking to everyone in front of herself, in front of the group, and it's like uncomfortable and stilted. And that would be so much easier if she could hand off, one of the NPCs to a player, but like that would go against the GM'd notion. But also it rules and is great, and more games like it's an elegant solution to that problem, which I view as kind of in the same space.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think playing with like that.
Also, hi Alex.
Hi, Alex. Um, playing with those like responsibilities and burdens and that sort of stuff is really great. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
I forgot to talk about something I want to talk about at the top of the show.
Yay.
Folks, you have uh, about 35 minutes to submit your games to the Teach RPGs for Palestine Jam, which will become a bundle afterwards, to my understanding. Um, please submit your games to that. Because when it is out, it will be supporting which charity? The Palestine Children's Relief or Doctors Without Borders. It appears that they are still deciding that. But yeah, make sure to get your stuff in there. It's very easy. Um,
All right.
yeah.
Let me I was I'm gonna really quickly just toss in a little something something. There we go. Yay. Go Wander Home. I found a drive-through RPG review of Wander Home somewhat recently, in which
Uh,
the person complained about the politics of Wander Home. I was like, this game I thought would be cute, but it turns out it's full of politics, and the creator supports abortion. Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Oops. Glad
yeah.
it worked now. Glad he had that response. Would hate it way more if he was like, this game is so politics free. And when like I'm sitting here being like, what, I feel like there's not enough politics in Wander Home.
We could
And
get
it's
worse
like,
with
oh,
that.
we could get I could be so much more. I have so many things that I could put in Wander Home. I was thinking recently about I'm just gonna talk about this because I think you'd
Please
find
do.
it interesting about it. Um I'm thinking about a review of a thing of Wander Home I encountered a while ago where someone got a bit it was like Wander Home, and then like the Ukraine war was going on, and someone was talking about how absurd it is that Wander Home has this kind of like perspective on like the failures of violence as a like being like like Wanderham has this kind of idea of violence as a like ultimately ideological failure, right? Like
Hmm.
violence is ultimately traumatizing to anyone who wields it, even if they're doing so for a good cause. And the person who reacted to that was like, "This is an absurd thing to say during with the Ukraine war. Like, are you calling these revolutionaries? Like, are you gonna say they're gonna fail? These and like, I just find it very interesting, like being in a moment where like I don't know, like the Ukraine war is a quagmire that has like and like the I would not describe it as like it is a trench warfare, right? And like it is a very kind of like it's a very political quagmire that is very like that like very cleanly illustrates the failures of violence as ideology, where it's like you cannot fight like you cannot like violence is traumatizing even if you're doing it for a good cause, like even if you're resisting like this outside force. And like the way that like I don't know, I just found it very interesting how it was like this very self-fulfilling moment of politics and gaming. And I was like, oh huh, I was not gonna draw that connection, but someone else was kind enough to.
Yeah, it's that is definitely an interesting place to come from it at, but like I it's it's tricky. I like that's such a I feel like that's like such a thing. People love violence. we we are like so thoroughly propagandized in that regard, right?
Truly,
Um,
Americans in particular, right?
mhm,
Like it's such a like violence is so like and like the problem, right, is that violence becomes conflated with empowerment, right?
mhm,
Like the reason why violence is omnipresent in gaming in particular, like almost uniquely so, is because violence becomes empowerment, right? Like you are not actually killing things, you are empowering yourself, right? Like you are not actually like you're not dwelling on the reality of shooting people in Fortnite, right? Fortnite is a game with like whatever like Overwatch, right? Like Overwatch is not a game that's actually like truly violent. It is a game where you are like that is just the mechanism you use to engage with the world, and you do so through being state sponsored paramilitary death squads shooting each other, right? Um and I think that like people encounter all of this and get so they're so like because it's so tied to empowerment. It's like if you take away violence, you're taking away empowerment, right? You're taking away the capacity to do things in a game through by taking away violence. And violent like taking away like violence, like claiming that there's something ideologically fraught about violence is so distressing
Mhm.
for so many people. And like all of my games are about like how things that are cool also suck.
Right.
Right? Like, I don't know. 7 Part Pact is like a break from my like nonviolent uh uwu games or whatever the hell. But like it's a break in like the way where like it's still ideologically like the same argument, just on the like cool giant robots, cool wizards, right? Like it's the meme of like the wizards casting the spell, and like the thing that's hitting you is cool wizards, and the thing that's like flying over your head is patriarchy.
Mhm.
Uh, it's like the same thing there, except then like Yazeba's is the same thing, but the two things flying like over your head and hitting you are reversed.
Right. Um, yeah, I feel like a lot of my work has been like exploring a lot of thoughts that I had after watching Dan Olson's I know it has a different name, but to me it's just the "Oops, I did a colonialism in Minecraft" video essay. Um,
Very fascinating video. Yes.
yeah, because like I think that video was very like very eye opening for me, and very like uh I guess very like important for me in terms of coming to an
Hmm.
understanding about like, oh, maybe I don't live in the era where like uh where like the things that I enjoy are going to be completely nonviolent, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not the world that I was brought up in. Those aren't the values that like those aren't the aesthetics that I find interesting. That's also like,
Yeah.
Verhoeven's thing, right? Um
Yeah.
and I mean that this I feel like I can't talk too much about this because like I basically wrote a 1,000-page book about it. Like this is what Sapphic World's about, basically.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, um, like the
Yeah.
the idea that like, oh, it's very cool to have an awesome sword and maybe a mech or two, uh, but also like most of the time, if you want to have a good time hanging out with people, you're probably just gonna like maybe kiss and
Yeah.
fuck a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for me, like I think games are at their most interesting when they like restrict me in certain ways. Like I love games that restrict me, right? Like for me, like one of my favorite like I played a lot of games at camp. One of my personal favorite is Predator and Prey for both like normal reasons and for like ludology reasons. Where one person is you got a circle of people, and one person is the predator who is trying to tag the prey. And the predator has their eyes closed and the prey has their eyes open. They're both on all fours, and the people in the circle, their job is when the predator or the prey approach the circle, they start drumming on the ground. So there's an audio cue to go back towards the center, or for the predator to like, alert the predators to where the prey is. And it's a game that like tag is fine, sure, tag, but tag where one person's eyes are closed and it becomes a kind of like psychosexual violent predator metaphor through the lens of ritual is very fascinating to me. um
Yeah, that's good.
and that all that has changed meaningfully is that one person's eyes are closed, but that restriction the limitation on your existence makes the game really like substantially more compelling for me. And for me, oftentimes like games are really interesting to me when they like say no, but like at one particular spot where there's one thing where they're like where they slap your wrist and they're like, "Hey, don't do this." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck yeah," because I can the moment a game says don't do this, I want to get as close as physically possible to the spot where it says not to do that, right?
Mhm.
Um I remember I went on a stream of there was some people doing a Wander Home like long form game and they invited me on for a Halloween special. And I went in there. They were like a very cutesy, kind of very comedic, lighthearted group. I was a jackal veteran. I was the great hero of the war. They found me in a river of coffins, and one of the coffin lids pop off, and I'm bursting out like, "Where the fuck are my enemies?" Like,
God,
ready to
that
kill them.
rules.
Uh, they come to the mansion of the King of the Floating Mountain, where, like, it is just, like, 4 people living in this enormous mansion, and they're, like, the help, right? It's, like, the butler and the waiter and, like, the housemaid and the groundskeeper and, like, a kid. And the mansion is enormous beyond belief. The back garden is filled with graves, right? Because the moment I say, "No violence," what I mean is when you know that I'm saying no violence, that means you can get as close as you possibly can to no violence. And, like, how close can you get to that limit, right? Because if I wanted to say nothing even resembling violence, that's a different limit, but no violence sets this line, and sometimes I like, that for me is, like, Wander Home fun, and
Mhm.
full respect to people who play Wander Home in a very cutesy way. I think they were a little rattled by my, approach. I don't think
Uh,
they expected that from me. But, like, that is to me, like, really interesting about games is when there's a limit and you push like, limits rule. People saying no to you rules because
mhm.
they set a moment that you don't go past, and so you can get close to, right? You can climb up and cozy up next to that limit as long as like unless the limit is actually further along, right? Like if someone has a particular limit and they don't want you getting close, then okay, actually the limit is a different closer thing.
Yeah.
But a true limit to me, the beauty of it is once you've identified what are the actual limits here, is that you can get as close to those limits as you possibly can and extract a great deal of play from those edges.
Yeah. The Sapphic World no birth thing has caused some insane position shit to happen, that I can't describe on here.
Fascinating.
Involving like clay and golems and like all sorts of
Fascinating.
shit.
There are I have some things to tell you about my freaky queer Arrow game awakening in college that I also cannot talk about on here, but I remember a very influential moment for me involved play testing this person I followed on Tumblr's like text-based RP like a text-based like wander around RPG
Hmm.
that involved uh 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 sex with a malignant pile of clay. That was very
Yes.
influential.
Good. Oh, that rules.
Yeah.
Um,
And games are great. Games are fantastic.
they're good. Play them and smile.
Yeah, or don't if you don't want
Or
to.
frown. You can frown if you like
Or
to.
fun. I'm a little bit of a cackler when I play games. That's I think my that's how you know I'm having a good time is I'm like I'm like an evil witch whose schemes are coming together. I'm like, yes, yes. Um,
I feel like the better of a time I'm having, the more in the voice I am, the more in character voice I am.
hmm
I'm just
I
saying
think I
shit.
think yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like so much of like so much of my gaming experience comes from running games for people and running games at camp. And that has really led me like I tend to like default to like I'm focusing on other people's experience, right? Like I'm very like, oh, like that's kind of my default mode is kind of like making sure other people are having a good time. And so when I am so on my bullshit, right? When the game has just got me losing myself in kind of self-indulgence, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm having a good time. Like when I'm like having an okay time, I've stepped back and I'm making sure other people have a good time, and that's almost like a little bit of a like moving back, and then like when I'm in it, I'm playing. I'm getting to enjoy my own bullshit, my own nonsense.
Yeah, I actually I feel very similar. Like in like I haven't done camp stuff, but just like
Hmm.
I've run a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of a forever GM in a lot of ways. Um, and so like
Hmm.
when I get to be a little silly with it, when I'm like, my guy is about to do some shit, uh,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's exciting for me. That's a good
Oh yeah.
prospect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, okay, we're rounding about the hour mark.
Oh,
Hour
no, we're not. Well, I mean, well, since check-in, but since stream started, it's only been 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean the eh, yeah, like 20. Well, the 7 o'clock mark.
Yeah, we're approaching.
Yeah,
We're veering in. We're on the we can round up.
yeah. Which is to say, how do you feel about doing the news and then taking a break?
Let's talk about some news. That sounds great.
Hell yeah. We have fairly light news this week. We've had
Hmm.
fairly light news for the last couple weeks. It's been a little quiet.
Yeah, everyone's waiting till March.
Yeah, that's real.
Hmm.
Let me. I just realized I
Z
never.
month has been going on this week. I guess that's we're on week 3 of Z months. That's not really news.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've done some little
yeah,
whatchamacallits.
yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna put a link in this because I just realized there's no link for the second story. Okay. Um, so the first thing, which I was very excited to see and surprised, like
Hmm.
the thoroughness of it, um, is the Thirsty Sword Lesbians SRD, uh,
Yeah.
which Sapphic reference document, which is good. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
something that I noted about this, which I really like, is there's a lot in here, like relative to other SRDs, like
Hmm.
almost the entire base book, I think.
So, are you familiar with April's day job?
I'm not actually.
So I don't know if she's still there, but for a long time her day job was a copyright lawyer. She's a copyright lawyer. That's her general
Oh.
work. She was working for AO3 for a very long time. Um so I'm not surprised. She is her specialty is Creative Commons and like open access and like how to set up those things for people.
Hmm.
So this is exactly the kind of thing that is her thing to do, and I know that, like, for instance, like, Evil Hat now has a much better, like, third-party license, and that is entirely because she designed it and, like, that sort of thing, like, it's very much her world.
It's great. Um,
Mm,
yeah, I think that this is a very good like model for the um like I think this is a very good model for other games trying to make
mm,
system reference documents. Like I think I
mhm,
guess it depends on your game. It depends on if you intend on making more stuff for it, which my understanding is
mhm,
like there's going to be more TSL. Um, but
mhm. Oh, yeah,
the
there has to be, yeah.
yeah, I think that like I remember when I first started playing D&D and I was like, oh, they have this SRD. I wonder what that has in it, and it had like
Mhm.
fighter, rogue, and wizard.
Yeah, I have a friend who's been designing, some D&D third party actually, I can talk about that. Maisie at Nightling Bug on Twitter, wrote the witch class for, Brennan the pod Worlds with Beyond Number,
Oh,
and, it's, like, one of the best D&D third party things out there. Grubby also did the layout because Possum Creek gets its dirty paws and everything.
right,
Um but, not through Possum Creek, she just did the layout because she's delightful.
right.
Um, but, Maisie was talking to me about how, it was such a pain to try and make it SRD compatible and, like, how much of a nightmare it is to, like, try because she's just, like she's so used to just being like, "I'm a fucking indie game designer, I'll do whatever the hell I want," and then it's like, "Oh god, I have to, like, coordinate with all these things and" little like all this like makes like all these spells that I can't use or reference and like these monsters like all these things that are just huge pain. So yeah, I think this is absolutely like a phenomenal SRD as far as SRDs go.
Do not mention beholders. You will go to
Do
jail.
not, yes, you must call them eye beasts.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Let me
awful.
see if I said anything else about this.
Illithids? I hardly even know a thid.
That's right. I'm excited to see what folks make with this. I think it's very cool.
It's
Um,
neat. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I. What else? I don't think I have anything else to say about this.
I was
It's great.
surprised it included the settings. I guess
Yeah.
that was maybe the playbooks. Yeah, absolutely. I think the setting and adventures, it is truly like pretty much the whole game, which is, I think, pretty astonishing. I mean, like, um yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a cool thing, and it makes sense it's come out now because it's been, a couple years
Hmm.
since the game came out. So, like, you're not really losing that many sales, but just it's an interesting project. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And then we'll quickly talk about uh every other week or so. It's like, all right, we gotta dip into the bargain bin for like uh big games.
Hey,
uh,
you know what? Trad games need love too. They have
yeah.
events going on.
The Alien RPG is doing a like play aid, a companion app called Alien RPG Nexus. Um,
Yeah,
I wanted to mention this not really because I want to talk about it that much. um,
and I have literally nothing to say about it.
yeah. Uh,
I was like looking at it, being like, "Do I have any thoughts?" No. Um,
more because I wanted to point folks towards indie games that have really good play aids. Because
so I
like,
think that maybe it's worth talking about, like, okay, how do, like, I think, okay, so first of all, I think the Alien RPG is pretty cool.
hmm,
It's not really a thing that I'm looking for in games. Yeah, it's like solid. I agree, Joe. I think it's solid. Um, does what it needs to. I think that's pretty perfectly put. It's like, um, I don't know. I think that, like, the big thing is that, like, the creation of these online companions comes about either through care or like passion or money.
hmm,
Um, and like, I think that there are a lot of cool indie games that are able to do stuff. I know you've got a little list there. I think that it's worth noting that, like, either of those are either able to come about most overwhelmingly because someone on the team is both skilled in this particular area and deeply passionate about it. But, like, I think that large games have an absence of passion, which I say, not like, especially IP games, which is not in, like, a judgmental way. It's just kind of the reality of uh making things. But I think that is why they tend to be kind of big and clunky, is because the only way you can substitute passion is with money, right?
yeah, one definitely an element that I think I agree is very important to mention is like this is not this is not like structurally possible. Like you cannot say like en masse indie TTRPGs or like it's about money. It's about
Yeah.
need to some degree. Um, and as you mentioned, like for indie games, it's about care, um,
Mhm. Mhm.
or like contacts often, like
Yeah.
um, like I have a friend who does really good spreadsheets, and so like I've been able to get spreadsheets for things for fairly cheap in ways that I would not be
Yes,
able to do
absolutely.
otherwise. Um,
Yes, 100%. Yes. Like, there's something like, like, the classic thing is like, "Oh, indie game has a soundtrack? That means that either someone on the team is or is friends with a musician," right? Like,
mhm,
that it just, and, like, I think that a lot of these things is in the same place. I think uh, Demiplane could be cool. I some people in a Discord were like, "Oh man, I hope Wanderhome comes to a Demiplane," and I'm like, what do I get out of that?" But I think that, like, a lot of these things are like, I don't know, like, I think that they are valuable if they help democratize the act of creating these things, right? Like, I I dislike Roll20, and I
mhm,
think I would like Roll20 substantially more if it did not gatekeep a lot of its like access features behind a pro subscription, right? Because that restricts it to people with money who are able to kind of do that stuff. It limits kind of the capacity for a passionate amateur to go in and make things. And to me, passionate amateurs are like the important thing, right? That like, and so like tentatively supportive of a platform which is open, right? Like itch.io, right? Where it's like, oh, anyone can upload a thing here is great. If Demiplane, and I have not looked deeply into Demiplane, if Demiplane is structured where like they're only doing specific deals with specific orgs or whatever, I think I'm a lot colder on it. And I think that my feelings on that kind of go back as well. I don't know, like that tends to be my feelings around organizations, is that exclusivity freezes my heart.
Yeah. I do also think there's like an element that kind of ties into some stuff we were talking about earlier with like mechanics, mechanical load, where it's like if if a play aid doesn't have a server connected to it, the GM can't just like access the player's sheets at any time to look at them and figure out what's going on. Um,
Yeah.
and like a lot of that comes down to the players being like, "Hey, here's sheet version 3, here's sheet version
Mhm,
4,"
mhm.
and like servers cost money, and like
Yeah.
uh, it does get very tricky. It's like whose dime do the servers get run on,
Mhm,
etc.
mhm.
Um,
Yes, absolutely. And like, does it ultimately, and like, how long does the how does the long tail support that, right?
mm,
Like,
You have a
it's
heart
one
of
thing,
gold.
right, when the game
Don't let them
first
take
comes
it
out
from
and
you.
it's like, hey, this game made $500,000. Wow, we can do Lancer CompCon. But like, Lancer, much love to Lancer, but it's not gonna get maintained 10 years from now. And the game is really hard to play without CompCon. So like, it's a game that's kind of setting itself up to ultimately not be able to have that kind of support. And I think that like games that are overly dependent on their digital tools, I think are always kind of in that dangerous spot.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I will nonetheless talk quickly about one of them I
Yeah.
mentioned was CopCon. CompCon. I really like Monster Care Squad's
Mhm.
wiki. Um,
Yeah, that's cool. I think a wiki is a cool solution.
yeah. And then Celestial Bodies, like whole interactive interface thing, is
I'm
one
I'm not
great.
I'm not familiar with that.
That is by I believe Charlotte Leskowski.
No, I am familiar with it.
Yes,
I
it's the
own it.
squares. Yeah. Um,
Oops.
it's client side, which I think is great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's all kind of it's very fancy and like there's some shit going on over there that's like a little bit beyond my understanding. I don't I need a wizard to explain that game to me, but
Got it. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I think you introduced me to that to that phraseology,
Oh,
the
that you need
wizard.
a wizard. Yeah,
Yeah.
where's the wizard? Where's the wizard to teach me this thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was me. I feel like that was me. Um, I think that like it's something I've been running into with Subpar Pact because it's a game that is so raunchy. It's a game that I've been playtesting with. I've been playtesting with Google Slides and Google Docs because I have developed a great deal of skills around cobbling together playtest materials using Google's ecosystem. But like it is, I am really stretching the limit on Google Slides and Google
Yeah.
Docs. Like there are a lot of features where it's like, oh, this game this game would benefit a tremendous amount from like, I don't know, basic so like a grid, right? Like a grid that I can move little guys around on maybe, or like, I don't know, like a halfway decent put together map. And I'm just kind of like, I'm starting to hit that moment and it's like, well, I don't have the skills to make the materials for this real. And does the answer that in the
You have a
future and make
heart
this
of
game we have
gold.
to figure out
Don't let
some
them
kind of
take it
online
from
support? Are
you.
we gonna partner with Roll20? Oh, I hope
Hmm.
not, but maybe that would suck. But also, it's got
Yeah.
to be done somehow, right? And I think that like like Roll20, I think that if you've got the skills or you've got the money to hire someone with the skills, that's good. And sometimes if you're just a trans girl making a cool, fascinating digital art object, that's perfect. But it's also like, what do you do when you've got a game that is built to be played in person, and we're year 4 in a pandemic where it's really hard to get games together in person still.
Yeah. Izeba was played on OMM. 7-part
Yeah.
packed is played on Google Slides. The
Yeah.
next Possum Freak game will be played with sticks and stones.
I do not know with what play materials Super Pack will be played with, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know that the next one will be yeah.
Okay, I think we are at almost 7, so I think we will take a. You want to take 5?
Yeah, let's take 5.
Hell yeah. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Please send your emails with questions for me and Jay.
Ooh, is that how it's done? It's done with emails?
Yes, or chat. Either's fine.
Or chat. Okay. I got excited for a second 'cause I love getting emails. Just send me emails.
I also like getting emails, which is why I have this. But yeah,
Yeah, that
darlingvideoclips
makes
at
sense, yeah.
gmail.com. If you
Send us letters. Send us real letters.
don't send us questions in chat yet, because I will forget them. But if you have a question you want to send in chat now, consider sending it as an email instead.
That's true. That's a great idea. Yeah, send us an email. Like, yeah, yes, or send us. You should send us snail mail. Like, send like with your questions in it. And then Eclipse, I'll call you up weeks from now and be like, hey.
I'll take the fucking I'm forgetting the name of trains. I'll take a train, and we'll look at them. All right.
Perfect.
We'll be back in
5 minutes.
At like 01, and yeah, see you in a bit. Hello, everyone. We're back. Hi.
Hello.
And we're now here to answer your emails. We got a lot of questions, a lot of really good ones. A lot of questions for Jay specifically, I've noticed.
This is my first time being on air in like I think like 4 or 5 months. Maybe my opinions on maybe I've got new thoughts. Maybe who
You've
knows?
come down from the mountain, and
Yeah,
you're ready to profess to the commoners.
yeah. Games are good. That's my creed. That's what I learned up on the mountain.
Good.
Yeah.
So my friend Grief, who I'm actually working on a game with, um, has compiled some questions from herself and her friend. Um, so the first question is one. Our friend is curious about the origins of Possum Creek. How did you all get started? Your printing process, initial investments, etc.
We had no initial investments. It was originally in 2019 me chumbling along in Staples, like printing out zines and posting them on Itch.io and like selling like 5 copies. Um Sleepaway was my first project of that. I just dropped out of college. It was a Kickstarter. I made like 14K, which was like super unexpected. And Grubby, who I knew from summer camp, was my business partner. It was like Grubby at that point was not my business partner. Grubby just did the layout and like advised me on many things, and like we ended up working very well on that. And then during the pandemic, I had this kind of like pie in the sky idea of like, oh, what if we got a bunch of artists? Like I've got Grubby. Grubby's so good with art, like traditional art. Like let's see what we can do. And Grubby was like, yeah, let's do it. And then we did Wander Home, and then we exploded. And like
Hmm.
I think people perceive Wander Home as a very professionally done thing because the final product looks so professional. But like, if you go back to the original Wander Home Kickstarter, there is no finished art besides the cover on the
Right.
Kickstarter page because it was very like kind of scrambled together. But it was truly, we worked very well together in a business capacity. We did a number of smaller projects. We built up very slowly. Um, I only left my day job when when like I was making, I think it was like 1,500 a month on Itch.io, which for me was like like enough, like oh my god, this is so much compared to what like I was used to. And then it like was able to become kind of a full functioning thing over time. But that's kind of how Possum Creek got its start. And then Grubby and like like which making Wander Home kind of became a full-time job for a year, and then now we make more games and that kind of whole process. That's the mythos there. That's the story.
Hell yeah. Um, I like this one. This is a good question. I am probably going to be skimming a little bit just to get a mix of people's questions. Um, this question is another from Grief and their friend. What leads you to create games with a focus on? Oh well, uh, sorry. What leads you to create games with a focus on the creation of objects like the boards of Sleepaway and tearing cards, or how Eusebius encourages marking up the book?
Um it's my LARP stuff, right? Like it's for me, like for a long time I was really dismissive of tabletop games because I was like, why do this when you can go LARP, right? Like, why pretend to be elves when you can put little tape on your ears and go be elves in the woods in reality? Um, and then I played 10 Candles, which is a game about like candles burning out over time, and like it's a horror game, and it's really, it uses the atmosphere of the table so well. And I was like, oh wait, that's the appeal of tabletop, is that like there's this way where like you can use the space of the room itself as like the mechanics of the game as these kind of sensations of being in this other world, right? Like you can't literally move someone into another world, but the texture of the mechanics can emotionally move someone into another world. And so like for me, I'm always thinking about like the tactility of the stuff, right? Like I'm really like, oh god, like what does it feel like to play this game physically in your hands? And there's no greater joy for me than when like a game is like rip this up with your teeth, or like write on it, or like I don't know, like use the game object as an object and enjoy that. And like have you ever played Thousand Blank White Cards?
I haven't, but I mean, I've you know about my following of God Game, which is like
Oh,
basically that, but like for a small community of like
oh,
uh Twitch creators.
very good. I played Thousand Blank White cards with my friends in college, and there's one card that was like really annoying one time. That was like I think it was like a Time Lord card that was like very like somehow screwed up the passage of time in the game in a way that we didn't like. And so someone else made a card that was like like it was destroy the card, it was get rid of the Time Lord, but it was specifically drown that man, and we were instructed to drown the card and to take it and
Uh,
just shove it in a cup and like or put it under a sink or like just drown it. And that for me was so visceral. Like fuck yeah, get like drown the man. That I feel like all my game designers try to capture that moment in Thousand Blank White cards.
I think I'm trying to remember. I think me and Jeff talked about this 2 weeks ago when I had Jeff on the show. Um,
Mhm,
there's a God Game card called Master Ping. It's the Kung Fu Panda character. Um, and or no, sorry, Mr. Ping. And you
mhm.
go into any discords that you're able to add everyone in, and you add everyone, and any you you get the more servers you get banned from, the more rewards you get.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Um,
Holy shit.
I think games are good is basically the reason why I said that.
That's really great. That's really yeah, that is fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that tremendously.
Um, Next one. This is a great question, and I might also have some thoughts on
Mhm.
this. Possum
Yes.
Creek has really developed a community around their games. Does Jay have any specific advice around building communities from scratch? I'm mostly curious because of the game culture. I'm wanting to make it my work as a teacher. This is from Grief's friend.
Yeah. Um, I think of myself as a community manager, like, that's a lot of the work I do, and also, like, historically before games was kind of my big like, a very important thing to me, like, as summer camp counselor. I think, like, I talk about this at various points, but I do think that, one of the big things is really thinking about, like oh god, really thinking about, what are the like, building a community is about kind of establishing norms and inviting people to partake in those norms and inviting people even to challenge those norms and to but, like, ideally, right, like, to me, the ideal, like, online community is one that doesn't necessarily need that much moderation because people know how to, like, moderate with each other and that there can like, moderation is only required in kind of extreme circumstances. And I think that I love communities. I think they're really important. I think understanding that, especially at the beginning of forming a community, some amount of conflict is going to happen. There's something called the four orms, which is like for group projects. I think comes from business speak, but I think about it a lot in the context of communities, which is forming, norming, forming, storming, norming, performing. That's it.
Mhm.
And you got a community. It forms, it establishes particular norms, right? It establishes like, okay, this is what we how we operate. Or sorry, it forms, and then there's like conflict around norms, right? Like a lot of early community stuff is going to undergo tension as people figure out what's normal, what's acceptable, what is status quo, what is not allowed, and push on that and figure that out with each other, and figure out what conversation styles are normal, what methods of existing are normal. And then once you go through that, then you really ratify those norms and solidify things. And only once you go through all that are you able to be a fully performing community. And so like I think when you're making a community, right? Like you're bringing people together, and those people are gonna have conflicts with each other. And there's an instinct when the first conflict happens of like, oh fuck, conflict bad. I need to get out of here. But no, conflict good. Conflict means that people are trying to figure out how to communicate with each other. An absence of conflict would be a little worrying because it potentially means that people aren't expressing their disagreements, right? Like they're avoiding conflict, which is dangerous. Conflict avoidance is far more destructive to a community than conflict itself. And through conflict, you can mediate and you can find norms, and maybe that means someone like chooses to leave. Maybe it means that the norms that develop are able to accommodate everyone. you figure it out, and only once you go through that, then you've got a community. But it takes a bit of time, and it takes care, and it takes a willingness to let people struggle with each other and to help them struggle, like, and to some degrees help them struggle with each other.
Yeah. I definitely agree on that front. Like I have I'm kind of in a weird spot where now I'm like kind of running two communities. Like I have my streaming
Mhm,
stuff and I
mhm.
have my like more game oriented stuff. Um
Yeah.
and I think like that like the fact that these things are iterative I think is really important, especially where like
Mhm,
I'm seeing these things cross over. Um
mhm,
and I also like in terms of like actually forming a community, like I think it's not easy to do this first part, but making something that people are a little bit insane about and then kind of giving them a place to be insane about it for a while and then being like, hey, we're going to do some other stuff here too, I think is a very good way to like make your first community, make your hub, right?
mhm.
um
There are a few different mechanisms that are very good at bringing people together. A shared passion for something is really effective. A shared hatred for something is more effective at bringing people together, but is also more effective at creating an unhealthy community, right?
mhm,
Like, I've got friendships that are built around mutual hatred, and those friendships tend to be enjoyable but volatile. Whereas mutual love the friendship tends to be a bit sturdier. And you can also form a community, I think, around like shared action, where it's like we are going to do something together, right? Like everyone get in here, we're gonna do something. And then you can also form a community around like shared play, where it's like everyone get in here, we're going to I think it's like engaging in activities or shared passion or shared hatred, right? But like I think like those are kind of the three big ones to me. In
yeah,
the J Dragon impromptu theory about communities, which like this is
I
the
think you're
opposite.
right.
This like this conversation could be a blog post. This blog post could be a book, but you know.
Right, yeah. Cool. And then I'm gonna skip this one because it was kind of already answered. Um,
Mhm.
and I think this one was also kind of already answered, so I'm
Oh
gonna skip it.
fuck! I gotta hydrate.
Go ahead, drink, please. Oh yeah, I gotta hydrate too. Hang on.
Thank you. I was forgetting. I
Thank
literally
you,
during
Venera.
the break looked over at the water bottle and was like, "Yeah, who needs it?" As I
Venera, always looking out. The first first Dovecote. Sorry, I've been so deep in the the first Dovecote
Mhm.
guest, Venera. Thank
Hmm,
you for giving us the hydrate. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Um, this is a question from someone named Molly. I don't know if you know them. Uh,
Mhm.
it would seem a lot of your TTRPG interest as of late has been on larger projects. Do you foresee sometime in the future your eye falling back on either lyric related and slash or shorter weirder projects, or in a post lyric world that is a part of your creative energy? Wait,
Great question. That's
oh sorry.
good. No, you're
Uh,
good.
you're more interested in
Um,
directing. Here, I'll just send you the text. You can parse it.
I mean, I understood that. I
Okay,
got
cool.
there. Um, I think okay. So I think that um larger I've always had a thing for big projects. It was always a kind of a joke at my summer camp that I tend to be over ambitious with my game design, and that has just always been true. I'm a very uh I believe very strongly in shooting for this, like making the thing that I want to make, even if it's impossibly huge. Um but I miss making smaller stuff. The problem is I just am not, I don't know, it's like whimsy. I just like, and I miss making lyric games. I think I just like lyric games are, I kind of have said everything that I was gonna say with lyric games. Like lyric games for a while were a sketchbook for me, and they no longer, I think that the particular areas that I was sketching with lyric games are no longer things that I am trying to figure out. Like I think I've used lyric games to figure out the answers to some big problems for me. Where it was like I was like, what are the limits of play? Right? What does it mean
Mhm.
to play? What is play? And lyric games were my way of playing with that. And now I'm like, okay, I think I know the answer to that. I think I'm good. I think I got there. So like I want to make small things again. It's just like honestly, it's harder to make small things than big things, right? Like 7-part pact, for example, is like or like Yazebas are both very specific experiences. And I cannot give you an experience like I am not skilled enough to give you that experience in 20 pages, right? I need that many pages, partially because I lack the talent of brevity that could allow me to pull that off. So I think that like I don't know, there is a particular skill to making the things that I want to make in as condensed of a way as possible that I don't think I've learned yet or that I have not yet mastered. And so I would love to make more short things, but I think that I almost like have to learn how to make short things. Yeah, I guess Molly. One time I said a 1-page RPG is harder to make than a 500-page one, and I feel that very strongly. And I feel like that is why the notion of the Heartbreaker exists, is because it's very to make a 500-page RPG, you just write about everything that interests you forever. And to make a 1-page RPG, you have to like somehow condense everything that interests you forever into 1 page. And I'm so bad at that. The 1-page RPG I wrote with Grant Howitt literally has text falling off the page because like on purpose, but like
Right.
because I couldn't shut up, right? Because I was so enamored with like a 1-page RPG that trails off into infinity because I don't know how else to do it.
Yeah. When I was writing, so Biotraffication
Mhm,
came out of me. It was like midnight, and I was like,
mhm,
"Hey, I've been reading some Human Investigation Guide fic recently, and I feel like I could write a
mhm,
pretty good RPG about it." And I started writing it,
mhm.
and Wendy Ripson was in the chat and was like, "Hey, you should like I like what you're doing so far, and it's really like concise. You should make the entire book very concise. You should make a 10-page book." And I did that. And
Hell yeah.
you know, it's hard. It's really
Mhm.
hard.
It is very difficult to like say everything in 10 pages and to say all the things you need to say, right? Where it's like Lasers and Feelings gets away with being 1 page because it omits most of what you need to say.
Mhm.
Like Lasers and Feelings does not tell you what a GM is or how to be a player. People recommend Lasers and Feelings for like first time players, and I am like, absolutely not. You should not hand a group of I didn't know your your VTuber rig could shake her head. That's great. I knew it could not. I've been seeing you
I
not.
got all sorts of shit I can do. Hang on. I got shit. I can do that.
Oh, incredible, incredible. That's so good. But like, uh, yeah, concise games are really hard, and I think I just enjoy the indulgence of writing a big game, right? Like it feels very, very like wouldst thou like to live deliciously, you know? Like wouldst thou like to write an enormous RPG about wizards? And it's like, yes, right? Like I think part of the fun of Wizard Game also is the length, but I would love to write shorter things. I just don't like it's a level of like focus and distillation that is very difficult and that I don't know. I think I will return to, but I think I've got a couple more big games in me before I do.
Yeah, very very fair. I'm
Mhm.
actually I'm gonna put my butt. Hey, just a real quick message to the audience.
Yeah, plug your project.
Fund Biotraffication on Kickstarter. Fucking like it's literally like a bit over 200 from being real. So just think about it and look at it. Thank you. It's
I will also
romance with
uh
aliens.
give me a duck username. I will also say a 1-page RPG doesn't make as much as a 500-page RPG, but a 500 RPG is so much more of a pain to move than a 1-page RPG.
Mhm.
And that's why I wish I was writing shorter ones. Is that Grubby is like, please write shorter ones, and I'm like, I added rules for different religions to 7-part pact.
Yeah. Yep.
I would love so much to be writing zines. I would be having so much more fun selling zines than waiting a year to be able to sell Yazebas because of Chinese custom stuff.
Yeah, very, very fair. I'm gonna save goblins questions because they're more general, and I have
Mhm.
Nat on next week, the person who I'm often confused with apparently. um, so that'll be a good time to do that. Um,
You both
these
have colorful hair and are very funny. So, well,
Great.
I should your icon has colorful hair, and you're both you like your icon kind of looks like Nat.
Yeah.
If I was yeah, I understand. I understand.
One
Anyway,
day, one day I'll get blue hair in real life, and then people will know.
and
Um,
you'll get confused in that even more.
yeah. So these are questions from Alex. The
Mhm.
first one is any advice for designing LARPs?
Um, Big difference between designing LARPs and tabletop RPGs is designing a tabletop RPG is about creating a thing that a group of people are sharing in. LARPs are not quite that, right? You can have a LARP like okay, I was running LARPs with kids, so you can have a LARP where you've got like a 10-year-old. Sorry, you can have a LARP where you've got like a 15-year-old crying over her dead best friend. Like she's like, oh, like weeping, sobbing, having a deep emotional experience. And then right next to her is a 10-year-old hitting poison ivy with a foam sword. Right?
Mhm.
Like you can have both of those vastly different emotions. Like they can be having an equivalent amount of fun, but like vastly different emotional, sensory, mechanical, like in every single way that you understand a game, besides the vaguest possible definition, they're playing two different games. So when you're making a LARP, even more than when you're making a tabletop RPG, you are not making like in a tabletop RPG, you're making a thing that a group of people are sharing in. But in a LARP, you're like making a space where things happen in. So
Mhm.
it's like you've got like, okay, here's the environment, right? Like here's the kind of the mechanisms for navigating that environment. And here's like just enough to ensure that the mechanisms are sufficiently complicated. Like you're kind of entangling people just enough. And then it's just like go nuts, right? What it happens, right? Like it's and then you'll have some people having a goofy, silly time. You'll have some people having a sad time. You'll have some people really, even if they're having a sad time, they'll be having different kinds of sad times. Like the experience is not monolithic, and I think the way that a tabletop RPG is like, you know what I mean? Like in a tabletop
Mhm.
RPG, it matters if like one person is a simulationist and everyone else is a narrativist or whatever, right? Like whatever the forge is talking about with like dissonance, that doesn't matter in LARPs. That doesn't fucking matter, and everyone's got different things that they want from it, and a LARP ideally is catering to all of those and also catering to things that no one knew they wanted. So that I think that's the big thing of LARP is if it's sufficiently large, you just have a lot of different people who want different things.
Yeah. My sense of I have not done.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I technically walked into a a LARP at. I walked into a very strange LARP at a party that you threw at PAX U. That was a very interesting experience on a balcony.
I think
But
it's really funny that I was actively high on ketamine, and I think I was
mm,
not the person having the strangest experience at the party. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I was having a pretty normal experience, and then other people were out here having LARPs on the balcony.
it was interesting. But yeah, my sense. Speaking of house parties, like my sense is LARP is more like house party than like a
Yeah.
we're going to watch Terminator 2. Um,
Yes. That's a really great comparison. And like you can have smaller LARPs that are more Terminator 2. They're like, oh, let's go get together vibes. Like you can have little murder mystery things or whatever. But like
mhm,
to me, honestly, smaller LARPs, parlor LARPs, right, kind of do blur the boundary between LARP and tabletop. Like I've got a couple things like Flower Court, which Flower Court is not classified as a LARP, but it is one, right? Like you play it around a table and you have another room where you put stuff in, but it's just I don't call it a LARP because I didn't want to, but like it is LARPy. You're just LARPing a group of people around a table. And so the closer you are, I think, to LARPing a group of people sitting around a table, the more of a tabletop game it is. And then
right.
the further you get from it being a group of people sitting around a table, the more it is strange. So fucking true, agree. True. So true.
Uh,
Um, fuck. Literally, like I think LARPs at house parties, right? Okay, like you're walking around and you walk into a room and there's some sad person crying in the corner and her friend is comforting her and you're like, oh, goodbye, I'm out. And then you turn around and you go to another spot and a bunch of people are playing beer pong and you're like, whoop, whoop, or they're
mhm.
fighting goblins, right? You know, the emotional equivalent of fighting goblins is playing beer pong. And then it's like, oh, okay, nope, never mind. Go into another room and you've got like a bunch of people who are like talking about some gonzo thing and they're like clearly out on their mind. I think in LARP they'd probably be out of their mind on like, I don't know, weird lore notes that they found. Maybe in real life they're on drugs. You know, yeah. So it's like it's very like, yeah, every room's got something weird going on. People are having a variety of emotional states. It is very much about experience and like like many LARPs can have many different structures and different traditions. They're going to have different things because LARP is an artistic discipline that is vastly more diverse than tabletop RPGs. Tabletop RPGs are rather like they are very standardized compared to LARPs. But like in a lot of LARPs, it's like, yeah, it's like it is very like you are in a space for an extended period of time and weird things are happening.
Just be careful to not be crossfaded when someone who you've seen like 30 times on TikTok walks into the room. Uh, um, yeah, hell yeah. Uh, da, 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 da. I think this is close to a previous question. This is a good one. I'm actually I want to ask you about this as well. How do quick starts make or break games?
Quick starts?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if they make or break games. I don't know if I'd go that far. I feel like
Hmm.
that's maybe a little. Let's. I don't know if anything makes or. I think cover art makes or breaks games. But I
Hmm.
don't think quick starts necessarily do. I think quick starts are like. The thing about a quick start is it's the thing to pull in people who are unfamiliar with it, right? And so it's one of the main avenues you have for actually teaching the game, right? Because only so many people, right? Like more people will look at the quick start than will engage with the game. So you got to make sure the quick start can like get at something that the game can elaborate on. And I think that a bad quick start assumes prior knowledge of the game, whereas like a good quick start like like is just like is self-contained. But like I don't know, I'm not great at kickstarts. They tend to just be in my Google Docs. I'm not really good at them. um it's never been a huge liability for me. I just kind of put my stuff out there.
Fair.
um Maybe that's why I think they don't make or break games. 'Cause I'm not, there's like a thing that I've noticed in RPGs, which is that things that people are good at, they will say are vital, and then things that they're not good at, they'll say are not vital. So maybe the reason I think that quick starts aren't vital is because I'm not very good at them.
Yeah. Fair.
And someone who is good at them will think they're really important, and we're both right.
Um. Oh, this is interesting. Let me. I want to comprehend this before.
No comprehension, only asking.
Okay, I'll ask it. How do you get people playing your game without spending money on it versus making money on your game? How much should you show versus hide for later? I think that the second part of the question is the question.
Yeah. Um. Interesting. Um. I think that can you repeat the second part of the question? I have
Yeah,
ADHD.
yeah. So how much should you show versus hide for later? When making a
Oh
game.
yeah, like when getting people to play your game and when kind of like you've got like a stream of people playing or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I don't understand why people hide cool things in their game. I think it is this like anxiety around spoilers, but the only thing like the things that have gotten me to play Disco Elysium, for instance, is the cool shit, right? Like
Hmm.
unless you're really good at that the text equivalent of the first chapter. Oh, I see. Yes, thank you, Alex. Balancing makes stuff free so a lot of people can access for stuff behind a paywall, so they pay because like you do need people to pay, right? But you know,
Hmm.
like you need to make money eventually so that you don't go mad. But like it is, yeah, we want to make things free. um and it's like uh I think like to me, it's like the stuff that I don't put out immediately, the stuff I don't put in the quick start is like I tend to have that be anything that's not necessary for playing a one shot, right? Like I'm gonna give you everything you need to play a one shot in the quick start. And then if you don't need it to play a one shot, I'm gonna set it aside. And that's just how my division works. But like the focus to me is like that I want to make it so that anyone who is like, I want to, oh, huh, what's Wanderhome? I want to play Wanderhome. I want to eliminate as few steps as possible. I want to give them as few steps as possible from thinking that thought to playing Wanderhome, right? Like that's the ideal jump for me. And like if it's then like, oh, and now I want to play a Wanderhome campaign, it's like, okay, well now I think maybe you should slide some money over. I that at that point, or pirate it, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, pirate it. Like, which like to me is always the thing where it's like because of how piracy works, once you hit a certain level of success, like if you know where to go, you can get Wanderhome online for free. I can't stop you. If you're deciding to download Wanderhome for me or buy Wanderhome for me, you're basically tipping me. Thank you. That's
Right.
great. But like, I'm kind of operating with the assumption that anyone who wants to acquire the game can do so. And I don't want to make it too easy. I don't want to be like, oh, and you can just have everything for free immediately. But like, I just assume people can get it if they want it. And so I focus on, like making it as quick as possible for anyone to be able to play. And then like, yes, absolutely. And so many bundles. Bundles are a thing too. And then like the actual game itself, I want to make sure I want to make sure that that's if you're doing a longer campaign, if you're going in deeper into the Wanderhome ecosystem, like you play it, I just knocked my computer over.
Oh no.
If you play it, you have a good time, then yeah, you should maybe give me some money just so that I can give you another thing to have a good time with in the future.
Yeah, for me, like I think you're very similar in this regard. Like on a
Mhm.
pre-release level, like I am not very I'm maybe even less picky than I should be, quote unquote
Mhm.
should, like from a business minded stance of like uh how how much access I give folks to like my stuff that I'm
Mhm.
working on. But to me it's like if someone is like I'm gonna pass Eclipse $5 a month so that I can read all the Sapphic World blogs and like have the game, uh,
Yeah.
then like that makes me very happy. But also if one of my friends goes up to me and is like, "Hey, what's Sapphic World?" I'll just send them the folder. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not
I
I'm not
do that
picky.
too. I literally I'll have friends be like, "Hey, so what's the sum per pack?" I'm like, "You want to read it? Here you go." Right? Like, I don't know. Like, I want to share the cool thing I made. I think NDAs are stupid. I
Mhm.
genuinely am. I think, and maybe it's because I make such distinctive things that if someone stole from me in any way beyond surface level aesthetic, it's so obvious, right?
Mhm.
Like it's so on the nose, right? Like if I don't know, some indie publisher, like either everyone's too big, like if some indie publisher put out like some new mouse, I don't know, some new talking animal people, no violent bob game, everyone would be comparing it to Wanderhome. It's so I'm not worried about people like either they're doing an homage or they're gonna like copy, but it's pretty obvious when they're copying. And like I'm at the stage where I can be cavalier, but like I'm just not. That's not my worry.
Mhm.
I'm much more worried. Like it's either like if you take without credit, why? And
Right.
also, it's very obvious you did. Or like you're taking so wholesale that it's plagiarism, right? Like if you're lifting like all of Yazeba's mechanics and you're not crediting a year before I put out Yazeba's, that is both transparent and plagiarist, right? But I'm not worried about it. It's not. I don't think people can replicate what I do. And so I just like to show people the cool things I've made. I just want them, and I want to just talk about the cool things I'm working on, and tell people, and like get people, be here talking about 7-part pact. Maybe a decade before I actually make that game, right? Maybe it'll be 1,000 years before 7-part pact comes out. And I'm just like, I just think it's a cool thing. I want to tell my friends about. I didn't get to talk about, and just because I think it's neat.
Yeah, like having stuff out there and like talking about it. Like, I mean, fucking,
Mhm.
I can't talk too much about this because it's like businessy stuff. But like me and my friends, like my friends Crowley,
Mhm.
Lilith, Wendy, like
Yeah,
we're making shit all the time,
I,
and
I know
like
about that. Yeah.
yeah, and talking about the things that we're making and referencing each other's work and our work, and it's like, sometimes that leads to arrangements. Is all I'll say. Uh,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
I think like NDAs are important to me when they are when things are uncertain, right?
Mhm.
If I'm handling someone else's project and I don't know for sure if we're going to be able to publish it, and I don't want to talk about it until I have certainty, right? And if I've got someone else on the team and I don't know, right? Like if it's a compassion to other people. If I'm brought onto a project and they're like, sign an NDA, I will, and I'll keep my mouth shut. Employers, don't worry. You somehow acquire this stream, I guess. But like, I don't know. I do think that with my own work, I think like it's it's cool. Like ultimately, we are like it's this weird intersection of business and hobby. And to me, the creative end of it is the place where I want to just be excited and talk to people. And if I have to be all professional and like, oh, our brand acquisition and our IP retention and that, I would rather kill myself. I would truly rather die
Mhm.
than engage with RPGs on the level where I cannot tell my friends about the things I love because I'm scared they'll steal from me.
Yeah, definitely agree. Uh, this is a last question from Jim Rogers, which
Mhm.
uh, I guess this is cute. This is a question for you and a question for me. So I'll ask the question for you
Mhm.
first. Um,
Perfect.
so this is from Jim Rogers, submitted for the
Mhm.
attention of the Dovecote. I play Yazeba. Wait, hang on, the birds! My birds! I got so
What's
invested in this
wondering about
wonderful
your bird?
conversation with Jay. The news bird is showing up late. They were at the spa. I don't know what to tell you. Uh,
I
that's
get it.
Cordis. Apocrypha, the email bird, is here. There we go. The birds are here.
Oh, thank God.
The
I'm starting to get
birds.
rash.
Yeah, it's okay. Um, so the question is, I play Azabas on One More Multiverse, and I'm having a blast. I would love to hear about a thing or two you would add to that digital experience now, if you could.
Oh. Um. mm, Um. Sorry, I'm running through stuff, man. I think
No, that's fair.
the big one is like I'd make it. I'd add. There's a few quality of life things I'd maybe tidy up. There was a thing we really. I think like I'd wanna I don't know. No.
Hmm.
It's a tricky question to answer. I think that I would just want to I think like maybe make maybe a little bit more like maybe just a little bit more into the eerie cards. I think in particular
Hmm.
it can get a little clunky. And I kind of wish and I maybe would have pushed a little bit more on I don't know. The drawing stuff is really good. I'm happy with how the drawing stuff works. I think like I'd maybe push a little bit hard to preserve more the drawing on the sheets and stuff. And I think better automation would be is similarly a thing that I would want. Yeah.
Cool.
It's tricky. There's always the thing in your head and the thing that is made, and we live in the world where the thing that is made. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. Like, I quite like OMM or Uzebas
Mhm,
Online. I do think
mhm.
I do definitely agree with like I think Alex saying in better automation and cross compatibility. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I
It's what
think
it is.
also it's a really kind of awkward spot right now where the book's not out, and
Mhm.
so kind of and like a lot of the understanding of what it is to move through that space, I think is benefited greatly by the book. So
Mhm.
I think it is something that will hopefully, I think if given the opportunity to like age gracefully, I think that will assist tremendously in kind of thinking about it as a game object is like having the book and being like, oh, it's the book, but a game will help a lot more than being like, here's a strange game that
Right.
requires book knowledge that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. No, definitely agreed. And then a question for me. Have you
Hmm.
any thoughts about playing Sapphic World online and how it differs from in person? I've only played Sapphic World online, actually.
Huh.
I have some friends. An old friend of mine has some like uh, friends with benefits type folks who we might do a game of in like some quiet rooms in the campus library that I used to go to. um, so
Hmm.
that might happen soon. I'll let people know how that is. But on the online front, I've exclusively played online. I actually started out running games in One More Multiverse. I had a little Sapphic world in One More Multiverse.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, which was really hard to maintain because I had to like make new
Yeah,
lands in One More Multiverse as I made them, make communes, wilds,
yeah.
architectures.
That's I
Um,
think a kind of tricky thing with OMM. Like I remember at one point we were talking about Wander Home compatibility, and it was like it would require, I think, just a robustness to their world creation that I just don't think is currently there.
yeah. Um, and then now I do it just through Discord, and I have a character sheet made by my really good friend Danny, or aka Curly, who did really good work with it.
Mm-hmm.
The spreadsheet character sheet for Sapphic World has a data bank on the main sheet that when you make a copy of it, it will tell you if a move is not updated from the main sheet. So like if I go in and I'm
Oh,
like, yeah, it's really good.
oh my God!
And it's Google Spreadsheets. Uh,
Yes,
so
no, I know how to do that. So I used to I one time made an entire RPG in Google Spreadsheets that relied very heavily on it was a secrets play by post game where you control an entire noble house. It was very like 7-part packed 0.1 in the level of crunch and complexity.
right,
And in it there was a spreadsheet, there was a master spreadsheet that contained all characters, and then those characters had like coordinates in the Google Sheets that would be linked to in other spreadsheets so they could pull up the character cards. So I know how to do that. But the idea of having like a heads up, this thing isn't updated in the main thing, that's really great. I think there's
yeah.
also that's really smart.
I'm
That is
actually
really
just
that
gonna
would be
show.
I wish there was an easy way to import Google Docs directly into Google Sheets and then preserve that connection because
Right.
I need to be writing I need to be writing 7-part pack in Google Docs, but I would love to be able to have the codexes be Google Sheets instead of Google Docs.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
It's
This is
really
like
good. I'm also just gonna find this that
genuinely
it
really
resets.
gorgeous.
There we go.
Wow,
Yeah, Curly did a really good job.
this is fantastically
The
put
aesthetic,
together.
it's really good.
No,
So
it's so good.
I
This
just want to
is
show the
really
functionalities. If I go into like, let's say, hang on, let me make sure they're on the same bit. So like Thunderstruck, the first Skywife move. If
yeah,
I take that
yeah.
and I go, um, if I change
You put
Goddess
it,
to Wife or whatever,
yeah.
and then if I go here, it might take a second.
Yeah,
There we go.
whoop,
So
there
now
it
it's
is.
red.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
very
good.
cool. I don't. I wish I had stuff for like Curly's. Curly is kind of a secretive type, or not a secretive type. Curly exists online the way that a lot of people do, where it's like Curly has a Discord account and hangs out with friends on it, right? Um,
Yes, absolutely.
but like, please, if you are interested in like getting stuff like this made for your game, please contact me, and I will like give you Curly's contact information, because it's very good. And anyone in the audience, yeah. Um, so I guess the answer is it's going pretty well, and I think accessibility has been improved a lot for the game just because of
Yeah,
that. Um,
it is incredible. That's really cool.
yeah. Um, okay, that is all of the. Although we still have 15 minutes, I could go back and do some of these other
Oh,
questions.
you are so like you're being too snappy.
Being a little too snappy. Let me go. I'm gonna go back to Grief's questions. Um, this is a question that I skipped, but I think it's a good one. Um, this was a last question from a pal. What games did you have to play to get so damn good at writing them? That's for you.
For me, I've I don't know. I'm not. I'm I feel like a robot with multiple conflicting programming right now. Where it's like I have a thing where it's like, don't be humble, like don't be overly humble, but then I have another thing that's like, the self hate Ouroboros, and then I have another thing that's like, what the fuck, like it's complicated. Um, valid. What do you have to read? What games do you have to play to be good at writing games? I think Under Hollow Hills is the best game to spend a great deal of time playing if you want to become good at writing games. I am making out sloppy style with Under Hollow Hills literally every second of every day. You
Mhm.
will catch me in the closet with that goblin. I think that um, reading lots of itch.io things and weird lyric games and thinking about like searching out games that you kind of low-key don't think count as games, right? So like figuring out, okay, what's the limit of what you kind of mentally consider to qualify as a game? And for some people it's like, I don't really think a solo game is a tabletop RPG, right? Like it's one person and a book. That's not a group activity. Maybe you're like, I don't really think that like I don't know, some of these lyric games, right? You're not playing them, right? So like it's not really a game, right? Maybe it's just a quiet thought you have, but finding those games, going for them and playing them and figuring out what makes them games, even if you don't like them, I think is a good exercise. I think uh, I think 10 Candles is a good game to play always. I think that like playing many different games, and I think reading games, and I think writing lots of weird games, and writing a lot of bad games. I will also
Mhm.
say maybe one benefit I have is that I have been writing games since I was 13. Like I've been like putting games on text and like presenting them to people, and like running LARPs at camp was oftentimes more strenuous than putting a tabletop game together because there's no play testing. You just make
Right.
that bad boy and you give it to a bunch of the most like the 10-year-olds will tell you if they hate the thing you've made, right? Give it to the harshest critics on the planet, like 60 of them, and a bunch of your friends who are overworked and sweaty and hate you for every bad choice you made, right? Like I have been full on yelled at for bad game design decisions where it's like, okay, I have maybe more complicated feelings about that I want to get into in public, but
Mhm.
right, there is a certain level where like that teaches you to know your shit. And all that together, I think is like I think it's good to remember that I was writing bad games secretly for about I think 7 years before I put a game up online. So for every game of mine you think is good, there's 100 games that were bad, and and you cannot have them. They're mine.
Yeah, that's real.
um, so like it's not. I think that that's maybe good to remember is that like unless you like it is very likely that like I don't know like art is an endurance run. Art is a combination of work and love, and you only ever see the most polished impressive part of it. And I think it's worth remembering that there is a great deal of trash that is generated on the process of making good art, right? Like in order to make Yazebas, I first had to write hundreds of games that are not good in any number of ways, including like, maybe politically not great,
Mhm.
stylistically not great, mechanically not great, kind of incoherent, maybe like, whatever, right? Like it's just that's the truth of it. And so, don't, just you give it time. Make games too. Writing is one of those beautiful arts where you can make it for your entire life and you only get better at it, right? It's not ballet. Ballet, you start getting worse past like age 16. Writing, there are writers who are like, you won't write anything good before you're 35, and I'm 26. So I feel like, if those writers are right, then I'm 10 years away from writing anything good.
Right.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
um,
but that.
well, I am reaching a point. See, here's the problem that I'm encountering right now. I need to piss really badly, and we do
No!
not have enough time for a break, so I think we're gonna wrap up here.
That sounds good. That
Yeah.
gives me a moment before I go play Wizard Game also.
That is
So.
also a great idea.
Mhm.
I will say again, please buy my game, my Human Domestication Guide inspired TTRPG
Yeah, it looks
Biogenification.
amazing. I'm really excited for it.
Thank you. Uh, that is on Kickstarter now. We're close. We're a dollar less than 200 away. So do
Mhm.
that. We are going to raid APC Kelly, who has Nat on actually. They're doing a
Yeah!
Q&A on let me make sure I know the name of the game. Is it Dragon Warren? Is that it?
I
Oh,
believe
fuck. I think
no,
I'm wrong.
it's Nat's game, which is a really cool game about dragon riders, and the name of which I do not remember either, but
Shit.
is really interesting and exciting. And Nat and I have had conversations about it. I'm really interested.
Here,
Um,
I can probably figure it out.
oh.
Warren Guard. Warren Guard.
You're guard. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So go watch that. And yeah, take care, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.
Remember, if you don't like what you see, you can change it. It's up to you, really. Goodbye, good luck, and have fun